need for good mentors. Mentors play such an important role in terms of the direction setting of where you want to be.
We can provide the transportation because they had night shift, night calling shift, and I was like, you need to provide transportation to transgender people. They do face a lot of hate and it's very unsafe for them to go back home late night. They just said that we will only be able to give the transportation on the basis of their Aadhaar card and who are they in their body right now.
Yeah.
And when I saw the award list coming out and I saw that their name there, and I was really upset. When we see the number and data, how many people they hired, it's very less.
Because there is so much of research done across industries on the value that DEI can bring to business.
Would you be able to reflect some of the major important spectrums? Because when we think about diversity, the first thing comes in our mind is women leaving a high-paying job, coming to something doing of your own. How was the switch? How was the shift? Any feelings about that?
You know, having spent 20 years in a company, you feel like you're going to retire there. One thing that's needed is leadership commitment to DEI.
Namaskar and welcome everyone to another episode of Decoding Professionals powered by Tweet Foundation, a foundation which empowers and educates people from the bride community, and yes, they have emerging goals to go for. And today I'm very excited to host one of a mentor, an incredible person, a great friend, and also a professional who is known for their work in diversity and inclusion. What they have contributed in India, we won't be able to cover all this in one podcast because that's a lot. Meet Tina Vinod. Tina Vinod goes with the pronouns she and her. Tina Vinod is the founder of Diversity Simplified, and Tina Vinod has a lot of years of experience in diversity, inclusion, marketing, employer brand, and the list goes on. Today we are going to talk about a lot of things and it's going to be fun. So I really want to thank you, Tina. Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. I'm so happy and honored and lucky to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Ankita. It's been, I think, such an incredible journey in terms of our relationship, and I'm so proud of where you are today and all the immense, wonderful work that you're doing in the DEI space.
Thank you so much, Tina. So I always have this, though I have introduced you, right, and that introduction was very formal. So I always give an opportunity to our speaker to give an elevator pitch about themselves to the audience, which can talk about you as a person, your family, what you do, what your fun, what your hobbies. So go ahead, give your elevator pitch now.
Okay, that's pretty candid. Tina believes in the power of serendipity and the power of motivation and self-driven effort. Through my life, I think I have seen how it's important that hard work, dedication, and motivation plays in driving your way forward. I'm a mother. I truly believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion can bring about incredible change in society, in families, in the world at large, especially in the workplaces. And I do wish that I can use whatever little influence I have to bring about change as much as I can.
Thanks. That was so sweet. That was so nice. Thanks a lot, Tina. So, would you be able to cover a bit about your past experience, your career journey so far? And then yes, I'm going to definitely come to that question of you being an entrepreneur now. So yeah, that's another question, but would you be able to reflect on your career journey for us?
I've spent the last maybe 25 plus years in the corporate world, and DEI was not in the list of all the roles that I wanted to play. I had the privilege of working in an organization that cared deeply about social justice and social impact. I spent 20 years in the organization and worked closely with organizations and people who are working in the humanitarian space, and through that privilege and through that understanding, I shifted into the diversity, equity and inclusion space. I was one of the early people to contribute in the DEI space, and also I think I had a lot of opportunities to work with non-profits, both in the LGBTQ plus inclusion space, in the gender inclusion space, in the space of disability inclusion, and that sort of propelled my journey in DEI. And I do think that it is very, very important to have lived experiences as well in the DEI space. And growing up as a young girl, who had a single mother, I think I have seen how that can impact life in a country like India. And the other important aspect was, of course, the need for good mentors. Mentors play such an important role in terms of the direction setting of where you want to be, and that has been very powerful for me as well.
That's nice, Tina. So as I've known you for a while, and the position you hold now, like you're an entrepreneur and leaving a high-paying job, coming to something doing of your own. How was the switch? How was the shift? Any feelings about that?
Having spent 20 years in a company, you feel like you're going to retire there. And that's what I thought. But the pandemic, in a way, has been a game changer for me in terms of made me really reflect on what I want to do. And what is my purpose in life. And at the time when I quit my previous organization, I was heading DEI for them globally. And I realized there's such a big gap in India when it comes to organizations' need for authentic, holistic DEI solutions. And like I said, I truly believe in serendipity. So I just said, okay, you're going to take the jump now. And I can be pretty impulsive as well sometimes. And so that's the shift that I made. I also lost my mother during the pandemic, and I think my mother had, was diagnosed with depression very early when I was about 10 years old. And I think that the impact of mental health and well-being and how that impacts you in the workplace was something also I wanted to devote my time to. And we underestimate the importance of inclusion and the impact it has on mental health in our workplaces. And I feel like that is a very crucial area that DEI advocates and DEI experts need to invest in.
Okay. So Tina, in your whole career, I'm sure you worked in different spectrum of diversity. Would you be able to reflect some of the major important spectrums? Because when we think about diversity, the first thing comes in our mind is women. That has been an era, we all will relate to it, right? But would you be able to bring down for the audience out here the different spectrums of diversity and what all work is needed to be done in all those spectrum along with the exclusion that they face? I know this will be a long answer to give, but take all the time.
When we talk about diversity, the first thing that comes is gender diversity, and gender is a spectrum. But for some reason, we always, equate gender diversity to women in the workplace. And so women in the workplace is important. No matter how much we have grown and how much inclusion we have seen, we do see exclusion for women in the workplace. And that is an important area as well. It's roughly about 50% of the population. We do need to prioritize that. But in addition to that, I think one is the intersectional lens, right? All women are not the same. There are intersectional women. You are one, I am one. But everyone has multiple identities, and we fail to look at multiple identities that we bring and the impact that it can have on us and the ecosystem around us. LGBTQ plus inclusion, very, very close to my heart. My personal journey of being raised in a conservative Catholic family, going only to Catholic schools, and then having my first encounter with a trans person very, very early in my life outside of the workplace, and how that spiraled my journey into understanding and learning more about trans people specifically, and then how my previous organization and the opportunities that I got to work with non-profits in that space me hiring one of the first trans people into corporate India.
My
All of that has been a tremendous journey. That said, yes, a queer inclusion, LGBTQ plus inclusion is important. People with disability, I think, one of the largest marginalized, communities in the world, and neurodiverse people. I think there is so much work to be done. There is so much in terms of representation that we lack, right? There is also the whole context around religious representation, caste, and the impact that it can have. One of the things that we look at in India, in a country like India, is, we try to take away the fact that 2/3 of India is rural India.
Yeah,
Right?
we completely miss that.
Yeah, we miss that.
Yeah.
And we look at a very myopic way of looking at DEI, right? Because when I look at DEI today, we look at it with a very urban lens. And most of that influence comes from the West. And I think it has propelled us quite far in the journey, but today we need to relook at the way we look at DEI in the context of India. We are diverse, we are in so many different ways, and every time there is a peak, right, in the West, there is a peak in India for the efforts corporates put in DEI, and that shouldn't be the case, right? This yo-yo effect of DEI, where it's very performative, should stop.
Yeah, it can't be actually measured in number. It's actually time driven as well, right? You have to invest in some time, some efforts, and intentions,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And you can't make the West influence, like for example when George Floyd was killed, right? The amount it spiked DEI activity in India was huge. And that was primarily driven by multinational organizations. And now again there are challenges in the West, and you see that impacting the work that we do in India. And so constantly we cannot have this happen. And so we need to look at a lens where, a future where DEI is looked at from the Indian lens based on our culture, the challenges, the inequality, the polarization, the pain, the trauma that's there in a country like ours, and try and build solutions accordingly.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very nicely explained. Thank you for explaining this, Tina. So, as you just touched upon a topic where a lot of DI professionals don't speak about is caste, right? Caste or other diversities in the caste itself. Like there is always a debate in India talking about how they get more reservations. Would you be able to explain it a better way why reservation is equitable? It's not just a game, just like that you should make fun of. So, how does that play a role?
Whenever I have this conversation on reservations, it can get pretty, get pretty hot.
Yeah.
And so, in my perspective, and this is my perspective and only, I do believe that when there is inequity, you will have to balance it out.
Yes.
And that balance will happen only by giving more opportunity, more representation for anyone who's been marginalized, oppressed. And in this case, in a country like ours, we know that the Dalits have been marginalized and oppressed, and they have a lack of opportunities, right? A friend of mine belongs to the scheduled caste, and we were having this conversation on caste, and he gave me a very simple example. He said, Tina, take me, okay? I'm the son of a sweeper. And my mother is a house help, and I got the opportunity through an NGO to study in an English medium school.
Helper, like, okay.
Yeah, he got the opportunity, although, and so basically he got a scholarship to study in a good English medium school. And he said he was the first in his family, in his generation to even, step into an English medium school. And he told me that, we talk about opportunity. That was opportunity for me. But all of these kids got to go back home, and they were tutored by their parents who could read their textbooks, who could teach them the subjects. But both my parents were uneducated, and I had to learn by myself. I couldn't afford afford tutors or tuitions and everything. And I remember studying in the most difficult conditions to be where I am today. And he's a very, very senior software engineer. And he's also helping other people from his community, children from his community to participate and to get the right education and support. But that is the reality. There is inequity, and unless you level the playing field, and that's going to take forever to level the playing field, we have to realize that as a community we cannot grow. As India, we cannot grow if we do not give opportunities and we do not have fair representation across. It can be politics, it can be our organizations, it can be in schools, it can be in educational institutions. You do need representation, and you do need to provide the right opportunities for people.
I'm touched, Tina. Thank you so much for sharing that. As I relate to this topic a lot, I meet a lot of transgender individuals, and the struggles that they have, they don't have shelter, they to eat is already what you know about to eat, right? So every story which we hear is super emotional, but still the placements of transgender people in the organization, or retention, or even their mental health support, I have seen that the long-term careers only handful of people could make from trans community. A lot of them are still struggling. I get calls in the night, I get calls in the morning that Ankita, I need help. But there's very limited any organization is doing to hire them.
Correct.
So would you be able to shed some more light on transgender inclusion, why we are not faster in that yet, and why it's so difficult to resolve yet? What are the biases that they face as well?
I think truly it boils down to representation, and has been change in the last at least I think 2 decades. There are policies, there are work opportunities. Many more organizations are willing to open their doors to trans people, but they are not opening their doors to trans people in the true sense, in terms of sensitizing their employees and providing a safe space for trans people, right? Here, I think reservations matter. And unless you do have reservations, unless you do have goals, we can use the term quota, and you could say, okay, it's wrong to use the word quota. But I think you need to have goals. You need to have goals to say that this year I am going to hire, if you truly care about DEI, you need to say this year I'm going to hire 10 or 15 trans people, and to make this happen, this is the strategic goal that I have in place. And these are the different ways I'm going to go and look out for trans people. This is what I'm going to do to sensitize my employees. This is what I'm going to do to support my trans employees through their entire journey, right from the time they apply to my organization, through the recruitment process, through the time they get onboarded, through their initial years in the organization, to growing them as leaders within the organization. And I think that holistic strategic view is missing in organizations today. People let trans people step into the door, but they do not create the safe space nor the growth opportunities for them to stay and to grow. And that's the reason why, even though organizations are hiring people from the trans community, they're not staying back. And very few stay back. And that is the shift that organizations need to make, and that's what I've been pushing for through Diversity Simplified as well, where I say, do not just have this goal saying I want to hire X percentage of women, I want to hire X percentage of trans people or people with disability. Think of a more holistic approach in terms of right from how do you want to see yourself as an employer brand. How do you see yourself as an employer brand? How inclusive are you? How are you attracting talent? How are you attracting diverse talent? From there to the point where you're looking at the whole leadership development and making it a more inclusive approach.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of people who open their mind and doors to know that they don't know a lot of things, or they want to learn about inclusion. But what happens if someone has just closed the doors and they're like, I don't think they deserve here, I don't think we should put in a lot of investment, because we have seen some people leaving the organization as well, and then the question comes in, their stability is a problem. How do you resolve such problems with leadership? Because that's one of the things people get stuck on.
I work very closely with leadership in the DEI space, and I see that when leaders truly care about DEI, when they're committed to DEI, when they're authentic, they understand the value that DEI brings to their workplace, to their people, through their business at large, to their growth strategy, there is a huge shift in the way DEI is adopted within the organization.
Yeah.
Now, I've also seen organizations where DEI is a HR-driven mandate,
Yeah.
and the leaders are not truly bought into it. Then I do see that there is a lot of effort that needs to be put in to make the leaders understand the value of DEI and how it ties into their business goals. Irrespective, I think one thing that's needed is leadership commitment to DEI.
Yeah.
I've written quite a few articles about leadership commitment to DEI, but sometimes I really pity organizations and leaders where they do not prioritize DEI. It means that they do not care about growth. It means that they do not care about tapping into new markets. It means they do not care about innovation. And if as leaders they fail to see the interconnectedness of DEI with their business growth, business strategy, and the markets that they want to grow in, and innovation, that is really sad. Because there is so much of research done across industries on the value that DEI can bring to business.
Sure. So Tina, my next question is going to be quite controversial. You can decide not to answer, but it's really important for us to reflect on this topic, right? I, being belonging from the Pride community, I have actually spoken to a lot of people from the Pride community working in multiple organizations, sharing their own struggles. And there are some agencies or there are some, self-proclaimed award-giving authorities who are distributing awards to a lot of corporates, stating that they are doing great work in Pride, and how just give them award. But when we hear the internal stories and when we hear the stories of their hiring, and I still remember there was one award given to one company, and I remember talking to one of that company. They said that we can provide the transportation, because they had night shift, night calling shift, and I was like, you need to provide transportation to transgender people. They do face a lot of hate, and it's really unsafe for them to go back home late night. They just said that we will only be able to give the transportation on the basis of their Aadhaar card and who are they in their body right now.
Yeah.
And when I saw the award list coming out, and I saw that their name there, and I was really upset. When we see the number and data, how many people they hired, it's very less. I'm sure you spent 20 years in a corporate world like this. What do you think is fair when award comes in place, and how it impacts people like us, you, or any minority out there?
Yeah, it's sad and it's true. Commercialization of DEI is happening, and the only thing that I can say is that at a given point of time, it's difficult to retain employees if you are performative in your DEI approach.
Yeah.
If it is all about the external, it is all about winning awards, but you're not doing anything internally, and it's only performative, it will impact the workforce. Today, many organizations have a huge percentage of Gen Zers, right?
Yeah.
And there is a way in which Gen Zers view the workplace, how open they are to sharing their views, and are open to also leaving, and that is the reality of the world today. Also, we are extremely digitized, right? And so all of this information is available. There is Glassdoor. If you don't care about DEI and it's all about winning awards, your employees are going to put up, enough of posts up there for your future, talent to look at it and say, hey, this organization is not authentic about DEI. I don't think I want to join this organization. So my, view on this is that you can win as many awards as you want, but if you're not authentic in your approach, if you do not care deeply about DEI, it is going to be out in the open, and that is even worse than winning these awards. So I would say care deeply more about being more strategic and holistic about your DEI approach, investing in your people, building a sense of belonging within the organization, and having goals in terms of representation. I cannot talk enough about goals on representation, because you do need representation. Do not talk about DEI if you do not have a diverse representation within your organization. You may say, okay, that's my next year's goal, but make it happen next year. You may say, right now I want to focus on women in the workplace, next year is going to be LGBTQ plus inclusion. Build that long-term roadmap for your organization and make it happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So thanks Tina, though it was lately controversial, but it is coming from my heart, because I see that happening, and somewhere I feel, being an employer branding professional, that hey, like how to differentiate between who's doing right evaluation, who's not, right? And I'm quite open to talk about the things that we do, and I'm quite open to say that hey, somewhere we are not doing everything, but we are going to be there. So yeah, thanks for answering that. My next question is going to be about persons with disability, and as we talk about this locomotor disability, speech, hearing, or intellectual disability, but we have seen that in the corporates, the problem is when locomotor, yes, with the limp, everyone say that okay, hey, we can hire with, like just the way you said, representation. So they want to have representation, people who have locomotor disability but with a limp, not completely on a wheelchair. So I've even heard, like I have worked in staffing business before I came into employer branding. So I am just going to share that even if they have representation, they don't change a lot of things. And the people, the ones who are having speech or hearing or visual or intellectual disability, they are completely ignored. So how corporates can do more work in not just hiring people who have limp, maybe more than that, how they can include all the spectrums. And what is the reality also? Would you touch on that?
I think today we have grown so much in terms of technology enablement to support people with disability, that is an opportunity to hire more people, right? A lot of times there is a strategy that's missing. And you know clearly that people care, they want to hire, but there is a strategy missing. My recommendation is to work with organizations who primarily invest in training and building manpower in the disability inclusion space. And there are many organizations like that. And then see how they can support you through your journey, when you, right from your recruitment process, through the initial few years till the person settles down in the organization, right? And their growth as well. The other approach I would recommend is that to tie it into your ESG and CSR strategy. When organizations start investing in non-profits who are in the disability inclusion space in terms of skills building, livelihood, all of that, all of the other opportunities, then that puts more people, trained people, into the workforce. It may not directly impact them, it may indirectly impact them, but you're bringing more people who are skilled and trained into the workforce. ESG is here to stay. Organizations need to invest in their overall ESG strategy, and this would be a great way of building that, that approach.
Thank you. So Tina, mostly we covered all. I know Women in Tech content is already out there. You have done a lot of work there, women returning programs, or returning programs in general, which involves all the genders, and we spoke about a lot. Now, would you be able to talk more about Diversity Simplified first? Then I'll ask next question on some success stories as well. So, when I started Diversity Simplified, the vision was very simple. I had built a lot of knowledge and built a lot of capability in the DEI space, and I wanted to take it to organizations that are struggling with DEI. That was the vision overall. I also felt like in India there are small to medium businesses who will need help but may not be able to hire DEI professionals internally within their organizations initially, and so I can help and support them as well. It was also very selfish because being confined to one organization can, especially for someone in the DEI space, can be pretty what's the right word? I think it just ties you down. And I wanted that opportunity personally as well. It worked for me, and it seemed like the right time. But Diversity Simplified basically can help you right from your when you start on your DEI journey,
from advisory, diagnostics, or if you're facing a DEI challenge in terms of there is a particular niche area that you want to focus on, whether it is women in the workplace or LGBTQ plus inclusion, or it is people with disability. There are lots of workshops and sessions that I offer that are curated for the audience. Like for example, I do workshops specifically for male leaders.
Okay.
Like curated 3-hour, 2.5 to 3-hour workshops that focus on how men can be better allies in the workplace. The reality is we have more men as leaders in leadership roles, right, today. Hopefully that should change soon, but I think the power of influencing through DEI is huge. Returnee programs, yes. Internship programs for people from the LGBTQ plus community and PWD community, yes. But anything in the DEI space. I do partner with a lot of people. So it's not like, I can exclusively, offer everything. So I do work with other organizations, partner where I need to. But this is something I'm enjoying right now.
So any success stories that you have so far, because it's been a year of Diversity Simplified,
It's been a year of Diversity Simplified. I think one thing that I would say is that I'm not marketed about Diversity Simplified.
You all of the also, Tina. You need to as well.
All of the work that I've got has been inbound, and I was telling my colleague Shrina, I was telling her, you know what, we'll have to get serious about lead generation. She said, so she was telling me, it's really amazing that the last 1 year has been just through the your contacts and the influence that you've had in the DEI space, and I think that's a privilege and it's a blessing, and I thank the Almighty. But that has I think is a success story. I've been able to work with diverse organizations, and I think of course a large chunk of it is still technology companies, but I've been able to work in the manufacturing space as well. Wow. I've been able to work with academia and roll out a DEI workshop for other DEI professionals, upcoming DEI professionals. So I partnered with St. Joseph's Institute of Management, and I ran a 2 to 3 day workshop on diversity, equity and inclusion in the workplace. And I just think it's been wonderful opportunities coming my way, and it is, like I said, a blessing.
So I'm sure that with the marketing experience that you were having with your previous organization, and I'm sure that you have written a lot of reports and newsletters, would you be able to share some of the context of those reports that you have published with very great names? I am Bangalore, like, oh my God. So would you be able to shed some more light on that? So
I'll actually talk about the recent one that I did, which is I wrote a blog around what do I see for 2024 in DEI, and I've written another paper that's soon to be published, for a diversity, conference that got accepted recently, and the event is happening in Feb, so I can't really talk about it now. But in terms of trends that I see in 2024, I do think organizations need to really, especially Indian organizations, need to wear the Indian lens and focus on belonging. So that is going to be a big investment. Focus on safe, inclusive workspaces, especially from a mental health perspective, because you do see that mental health is taking a beating across the globe, and especially in a country like ours. I also do think that budgets are cut. And I've spoken about Jugaad innovation in DEI. We came up with the terminology Jugaad innovation. India came up with it. But a lot of people feel like doing DEI means spending tons of money. That's not necessary. Yeah, and I think you can really be agile, you can be inclusive, and you can practice DEI in a lot of ways that does not have to have big fancy budgets. So that is something that I would, I want organizations to learn and do more of that. I also do believe leaders need to be advocates and drive DEI, and it needs to be tied to their KPIs, OKRs, what do you want to call it within your organization. Because if leaders do not drive the change and do not believe in that power of DEI for their business, I do not think you can really be successful. Yeah, I do not. So I do think leaders need to truly advocate for DEI. Like I said, ESG is here to stay. So, investing in a very holistic ESG strategy where DEI is interwoven into your larger ecosystem, I think becomes important. And, empathy circles.
Yeah.
I do believe that you need to create spaces for people to share, for people to talk. Ankita, when people look at you and me, they'll say, privileged. They don't know our backgrounds, they don't know who we are. If they listen to our stories, they will know our journey, what we've been through, our lived experiences. But there are so many more who don't have a voice. They may want to share, but do we create those safe spaces in our workplaces is important. And so I do believe that, when I was working in a large multinational organization like ThoughtWorks, creating that safe space and the power of speaking and listening is tremendous. It can change lives forever. I have seen one trans person make such a huge change in the way trans inclusion is looked at in the workplace. And so the power of DEI can be enormous, and I think we really downplay it.
Oh my God, yeah, it is really nice the way you said it, and of course people don't know anyone's background until unless they talk about it, so that's where we should not just throw our unconscious bias or our judgments and opinion on people, that we anyways ourselves practice, and I'm sure the world will learn from this podcast. And I really want to thank you, Tina, for coming here, sharing such a candid conversation with me. And I really wish you luck. I'm sure I've worked in multiple engagements with you. Folks, Tina is a great leader, great trainer, and the ones who will actually solve all your DI problems. So congratulations again for having 1 year anniversary of Diversity Simplified. I'm really very proud of you. Such a great entrepreneur is sitting in front of me. Thank you for coming today. I want to thank Harsh and Mohit for shooting this podcast, and my whole store for giving us this studio, the ones who are invested in it, and thank you so much Tweet Foundations. Thank you everyone. Like, share, subscribe, and do share this message for all, because maybe this one podcast will change your organizational life. Thank you.